Newcombe. He's an author and he's written a lot of books on moral principles and values. So we want to get his take on: is it good to have rational discussions on moral principles and values?
Yes, absolutely. God gave us a mind.
Can a human being follow a moral principle without ever intentionally violating it?
Say that again.
Can a human being follow a moral principle without ever intentionally violating it?
Yes, but I think a lot of people intentionally and unintentionally violate God's law. Or as Jefferson, to use a good phrase from Jefferson, the laws of nature and of nature's God.
Okay? Should you follow your moral principles without ever intentionally violating them?
Yes, I think so. When you violate them, psychologists use a good phrase. It's called the theory of cognitive dissonance. And the idea of it is that you would be in violation of what you know deep down is right. But the interesting thing is that we're all sinners, and all of us have fallen short of the glory of God. That's why in the fullness of time, God sent his one and only Son, Jesus, to die for us, because he loved us and redeemed us, those who believe in Jesus and his finished work on the cross.
So
for
do we all?
salvation.
I'm sorry. So do we all have cognitive dissonance,
I think to some degree we do, and to some degree we don't. And I know in my own
including
case,
yourself? You have a lot of cognitive
I have-
dissonance.
I have-
Dissonance.
I know what is right, and sometimes I knowingly do what is wrong, and I feel terrible about it. And in fact, in Romans chapter 7, which is in the New Testament,
so
there's
let
a
me ask you
struggle
about
Paul
that.
had about that. Yes, go ahead.
So you don't do what you think you should do?
I try to do what I think I should do, but I know that sometimes I fall short.
Well, why is it that you don't do it if you already established that a human being can follow a moral principle without ever intentionally violating it, right? You can do it.
You can do it, and I
So
think
I don't understand, why would you not do it if it's within your capacity to do?
because I think there's conflicts in desire. I think that there are different or desires in conflict, and maybe a better way to put it.
So
That
are your desires in conflict with your moral principles?
sometimes, yes, but not knowingly. I don't try to knowingly do that. Let's take an example of overeating. Of overeating. Okay, you want to be. You want to have a fit body and you want to look good and be healthy. Okay.
Right.
But on the other hand, this piece of pie or whatever might be so tasty that your desire for the pie overcomes your desire to eat healthy in a healthy way.
Right, but that's just a general guide for nutrition or healthiness, and you can vary it a little bit more or less. We wouldn't fault you for one day on a Sunday having a pie,
Right,
that's no
right.
big deal.
Right.
But let's talk about actual principles.
Okay.
Is one of your principles love thy neighbor as thyself?
Absolutely. Yes.
And do you follow that principle without ever intentionally violating it?
I try to the best of my ability.
But sometimes you intentionally violate that principle?
Not intentionally, no, not that one. Not in terms of I don't try to ever violate that principle. Now I know in my life, from the beginning to the present time, I'm 59 years
Right.
old. Have I ever violated it? Have I ever fallen
In
short?
the past
Absolutely.
when you were
Absolutely.
not developed or whatever,
Yeah.
but now you
I
you
try
never
to-
you
I
never
try to love my-
intentionally you never intentionally.
Correct.
I'm not saying you try and fail, but now you never intentionally violate that principle of love thy neighbor as
Yes,
thyself.
that is correct.
So, do you think it's possible to love people on command? Like if I said, love that guy that's walking by right here, can you do that?
I think with the help of God, people can. For example, can I tell you a story?
Well,
Or
I'm trying to figure out exactly how, because I thought that love was a spontaneous emotion that you had based on a person's actions.
I think love.
And so I don't see how, if you commanded me to love this lady, I couldn't do it.
Love is, obviously love can be defined in different ways, but true love acts in a way that shows and does what is best for the person. With God's help, people can love their neighbor more than they did before. In some cases, I'll
Are
give
you
an
talking about respecting people?
I'm talking about respecting people
Because
and
that's
trying
something
to show
different.
love.
Different is, one thing is to respect other people, everybody deserves respect because they're a human being, but to actually love them, you think it's possible?
I think it's possible with the help of God.
As
I
much
think-
as yourself?
Yes. In other words, in the example of Jesus Christ, when he gets inside a person, like he has changed me from the inside out. So where people that I didn't love before, I can actually love them. Not in the sense of liking them necessarily, but in terms of showing them respect and trying to give to them and so forth.
So it's really not loving thy neighbor, it's really more like respecting thy neighbor and treating him decently.
Yeah, but that would include all kinds of help. I mean, it is a fact. It is a fact. In fact, there's a president, the president of the American Enterprise Institute is a former Syracuse professor, and he wrote a book called Who Really Cares? It's something to that effect, Mr. Brooks, or Dr. Brooks. And so anyway, in that book, he shows that on the one hand, you have these liberals who talk a good game. They're very generous with other people's money. You know,
Exactly,
it's tax money.
right.
But what he's talking about, he's done this research and he's found that people who are actually charitable, who are actually giving of themselves, a lot of times they're just decent Christian people who are just out there to love their neighbor as herself.
Right. It's one thing to be generous with another person's money,
Yeah.
and it's different to be generous with your own. Absolutely. So here's a question. Do you think that the more you sacrifice yourself for other people, the better person you are?
Yeah, I do, and I think that's you become more like Jesus Christ, who was the ultimate person who sacrificed himself so that anybody could get into heaven because of the blood that he shed on the cross.
Do you follow that principle without ever intentionally violating it?
Without ever intentionally violating, yes, I would
So
say
you
so.
consistently sacrifice yourself for other people all the time?
I try to. I said at the very outset,
But-
I fall short of that which I know.
So sometimes you don't.
Sometimes, that is correct. I am
So
not
previously
perfect. I
you
don't
said-
walk on water. I don't.
So previously you said that you did. Aren't you sometimes saying that sometimes you do follow that principle consistently and other times you don't? You intentionally violate it?
If we say that we are without sin, we're a liar and we make God out to be a liar. But if we confess our sin, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and can cleanse us from all unrighteousness. I believe that. That's in 1 John in the New Testament.
What would happen if to somebody who sacrificed themselves completely for other people? Would they not die?
Yeah, I mean, in the ultimate example, yeah.
So is it a good idea to follow that principle and die?
Well, this life is not all there is. This life is not all there is, and there is a real reality facing all human beings, and it boils down to, are you prepared or are you not?
Well, let me ask you this, Jerry. Why haven't you done it? Because I see you look pretty healthy. You've been eating enough of that pie.
Well, I do try to give of myself. For example, I'm involved with a food ministry when I'm in town. Very much active.
You're
with that.
mildly generous. You help a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah, I
but
try to
that's
help.
not. You're not trying to sacrifice yourself as much as possible, or you're not following
I'm
the
not
principle.
Mother Teresa.
You're not
even
following the
close.
principle of the more you sacrifice yourself, the better you are, because you're quite content not to be so good and not to sacrifice yourself so much.
Well, again, I'm not. I don't walk on water. All I can say is I feel like I'm a sinner saved by the grace of God, and her camera ran out, I think.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Or maybe it didn't. No. She's shaking her head no.
Thank you,
What
Jerry.
is this for?
Well, we just want to get your take. We did on moral principles and values. It was a good interview. I appreciate it.
Okay.
I appreciate it, Jerry.
You could